Currently, where my position stands, social media bans for under 16s, it's a protective measure, not an attack of freedom, and that's kind of one of the big things I've seen is like attacking freedom. Really, I believe that the social media ban is really just a protective measure. Kids are statistically at high risk of harm online between 10 and 15 through cyberbullying, self-harm content, grooming, body image, which is, I've seen read a couple of stories about this, which is hectic, and same with the AI pornographic ones. Like if this happens to a kid, it looks actually brutal. It's a large percent of kids are reporting that they've been attacked online. I'm still not convinced that parents can realistically supervise all online behavior. Like just given just the complexity of what life is like now, it's having that sort of having parents having to monitor all their kids, and some people don't have parents that even want to do that. So I don't know if that's really a realistic sort of way to look at it. Safety of kids is multi-stakeholder, and this was a big one because people keep going about the government won't be able to protect them, government won't be able to protect them, but they're not talking about controlling everything themselves. It's government policy stacked with platform responsibilities, stacked with parents at home and teachers at school, and also social norms like other kids sort of helping each other out, and even friendly adults and stuff like that. These are all things that play together to basically create that overarching safety online. So that's, I think people should stop steering away from really just attacking the one sort of stakeholder and look at it more as a cohesive sort of movement towards e-safety. That's sort of my position on that at the moment. There's bans and restrictions for minors already, and I feel like a lot of people aren't actually talking about this when they're doing their debates, but kids can't drink under 18, kids can't drink under 16, kids can't vote under 18, there's age of consent laws, there's child labour restrictions. These aren't not necessarily oppression, it's just the developmental guardrails, and that's a key term, I think, developmental guardrails. Kids are in a very, very vulnerable position in their lives at that age, and they really need to be given the best opportunity to become the best versions of themselves, I guess is a good way to put it. This is not a permanent rights removal, meaning that full autonomy returns at 16. So as soon as they hit 16, they get everything back. So people talking about this permanent sort of control and that sort of stuff, it's just I don't know, that just doesn't stack up to me. Down below, platforms have repeatedly failed to self-regulate. We've sort of seen that before. Harm online is far more prevalent than physical playground injuries, which I've had someone talk about what they're going to start regulating on the playground. It's just online you can be anonymous, you can be very discreet, and you can just get in, get out, you can do all sorts of damage without actually even being caught. Whereas on a playground, someone goes up and hits you, there's a lot more consequences on in a playground. Your friend can stick up for you, and just there's teachers, and there's just so much more. So just that's sort of, I think that's just a good thing to remember too. Saying parents should just monitor their kids ignores the scale, accessibility, AI tooling. That's what I mean by we're looking into it. Parents just typically don't understand the newest technology and all that sort of stuff, and you can't expect parents to actually all learn about AI. You can't expect all parents to learn about social media. You can't expect all parents to always be monitoring about what's the new trend and these sort of things. I just don't think it's going to be possible for all parents. I'm not saying that there aren't some brilliant parents out there that are probably ahead of their kids and that sort of stuff, but I think as a majority, it's a bit of a reach, and that's why government comes in to create these sort of policies, and then that makes the onus on the platforms to basically regulate, etc., etc. So the purpose, to me, I find, is to reduce exposure, raise platform obligations, and set new minimum standards, and delay harmful digital environments during critical years. So that's a key one as well, because you're never going to get rid of the problem of cyberbullying and all this AI stuff, and damaging content, and forums, and people being stalked and all that sort of stuff. You're never going to get rid of it completely, but it's just going to try and delay those to a more critical part of a child's years, where they should have the tools and to be able to sort of see these things out and not engage with them and maybe report them and stuff like that. So kids will attempt to workarounds. Every restriction has workarounds, but that doesn't mean that we don't create the rule. Same with liquor restrictions. Kids are going who's going to drink. Doesn't mean that we just don't have any sort of drinking laws, porn restrictions, driving restriction age gates. So that's kind of like where I stand at the moment in terms of how I'm looking at all of this. But this could grow, and it could actually change my position too. So I'm not going to say that's it, but that's sort of where I'm at. And the debate points I've sort of seen so far, parents should monitor, government should interfere. I think there's just a number of debate points here just to sort of, basically argue against that, which I think are pretty strong. Playgrounds aren't banned. Why social media? I think there's a lot of easy debate points about that. It's not a like for like at all. The ban won't work. Again, every safety measure has imperfect compliance. Underage drinking still happens. Underage porn access still happens. Underage gambling still happens. All these things still happens. But the point is that we're trying to cohesively provide protection to kids. So it's all about everyone getting together and basically doing this to improve the chances of all kids under the age of 16 to basically become the best version of themselves, have the most amount of opportunities, and to become successful adults once they begin hitting those more in those years above 16. Freedom over everything else. Freedom to do whatever you want. It's not applied to minors in any society, and that's super important. People keep talking about freedom, but minors don't necessarily have freedom. There's a lot of things that they get forced to do, and minors don't have full autonomy because they can't consent, they can't consume legal liability, all these sort of things. So freedom arguments fall apart once we acknowledge the scientific and medical evidence of harm during developmental years. Protect children does not equal authoritarianism. Libertarian NAP. NAP doesn't apply the same to children because children cannot meaningfully consent to contracts or responsibilities. Claim that this sacrifices children's freedom for adults' peace of mind, ignores the documented measurable harm inflicted by platforms. Government surveillance, this is what I always see popping up. It's such a conspiracy theory. I feel like that's a conspiracy theory. There's no actual evidence that the Australian government is not even doing all this. Anyway, it's all the platforms that get all this verification info and stuff like that. So anyways, but who knows, this could all change. Government failure, overkill. Utilitarianism leads to oppression. My stand is not utilitarian, it's development protection. No one's rights are being permanently restricted. They get it back after 16. It's equivalent to other temporary age restrictions. Children need to learn the responsibility. Banning prevents growth. It's not kids. It's for government control, kind of circling back up to above. Zero evidence for this ban. Provide surveillance. Comments about suicide from bullying. Clear evidence of real harm. Victims of online bullying leading to depression, self-harm. So these are real things. This is precisely the type of harm the policy aims to reduce. Okay, so that's sort of where I'm at with the debate points that I've sort of engaged with so far, and I feel like these are all pretty strong. This is my position, could change as we learn, but it's kind of where I'm at the moment. If you guys agree with that, disagree with it, but jump in the chat or talk to me about it below in the comments, and let's start watching. Don't forget, if it's the first time on my channel, subscribe, check out some other content too, and let's get into it.
Well, a world first in Australia.
Anyone under the age of 16 will be banned from 9 major platforms.
With other nations following suit. Parents are being warned to prepare now.
Well, it's less than a week to go before underage children are booted off social media. So we've spoken to the two people in charge of this world first plan, asking them questions that you have sent in.
One of the biggest questions we've seen repeated in online comments is whether it's the government's place to tell kids what they can and can't access online. This is what Communications Minister Annika Wells had to say.
So some people have said what you're saying, but mostly I found those people to be commenters on social media, not actual parents in Australia trying to navigate this. Although I respect their right to disagree, these are big world-leading laws, but I'm confident that they will create cultural change that will really positively impact the lives of our Australian 13 to 16-year-olds. Overwhelmingly, in fact, every single parent that I can think of that has approached me to talk about this at local community events around here near my electorate office have said to me, thank you, please stand firm, don't back down. It's such a relief in a space where we felt really helpless to have something that we can cling on to now. It's another weapon in the arsenal.
So which apps fall under the ban, and why is the government taking these drastic steps?
TikTok, it's in.
Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat?
They're all in.
And what about YouTube and YouTube Kids?
YouTube is in, YouTube Kids is out.
And Twitch, Kick, or Reddit?
All three of those are in.
Didn't know that YouTube Kids was out.
Okay, and then what about Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp, those kinds of messaging services?
There is an exclusion for both messaging apps and for online gaming platforms, so they are out.
And what about Roblox, Steam, and Discord?
So Roblox and Discord and Steam are out.
And why is Discord out specifically? There's been a handful of people who have raised concerns about Discord.
Yeah. Discord is, you can use Discord for a chat, typically using gaming. That's what, I've used it for. You can use chat rooms and stuff like that. Yeah, I wouldn't really necessarily call it a social media website. It kind of is just like, Messenger and that, I guess, to some extent, but you can have pretty large chat rooms, that's for sure.
In particular? Well, Discord largely because it's primarily a messaging platform. It has, and what you'll understand is that no site is purely social media. None is purely messaging. A lot of the messaging has sort of algorithms or different online social interaction features, and the same thing with online gaming. But what Parliament put to us in terms of the test is what is the sole or significant purpose. If it is online social interaction, then it is in the description as an.
That's really important what she said there. If it's designed primarily for social interaction, it's kept untouched. I guess, and that's probably a very important clarification to make. Is apps like Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook. I guess those are not necessarily used just for sending messages, and that they are used to send photos and to basically promote body image. In some cases, you can take videos, you can share videos, you can make, you can alter images, all these sort of things. So I guess it's a very important. I mean, probably Snapchat's on the cusp there, but yeah.
Age-restricted social media platform.
YouTube you can still use without an account. I certainly use it when I haven't logged in. So what's to stop kids just going on and not having an account?
Well, they can view it in a logged out state, and that was something that I think a lot of educators were concerned about because a lot of people were taught on that. That's still available to them. The difference is, one, Google won't be able to monetize those 2.5 million 8 to 15-year-olds. But the way that the recommender systems work as well is when they have your account and they have all that data on you, that's when the opaque algorithms come to work and they start serving you things based on the personal data that you have there. So it's 3 years that these children won't be exposed to these powerful, harmful and deceptive design features that are designed to keep them hooked with autoplay and endless scroll and sending them down rabbit holes that they probably shouldn't be on.
So you're saying that without having an account on YouTube, for example, that means that then people won't have that sort of targeted advertising or those targeted videos that bring them through into places that perhaps are not very good for them to be, that it's more of a broad brushstrokes experience rather than targeted.
Right. It will be likely providing sort of the basic information based on what the demographics are most Australians like to watch. We have definitely said directly to Google and YouTube leadership that we expect because we have codes coming into place and we have something called the Restricted Access Declaration that they shouldn't be hosting any content in a locked out state that isn't appropriate for over 18s.
Now, that was a lot of companies that we just listed. Some of those companies, if they do have the bans in place, will have access to some more of our data, whether that is government IDs or potential biometric data, like looking at people's faces. Does that open up people to more vulnerability when it comes to cyber hacks and identity theft?
What I'd say is those companies already have massive amounts of your data, and one of the safeguards we made sure that we put into the regulatory guidance are things like, if depending on what kinds of tools they're using, and they cannot exclusively use digital or government ID, those need to be kept in a privacy and security preserving way. The private information they're able to collect cannot be used for other purposes like marketing. And the other great thing about this is I have a co-regulator in the Privacy Commissioner, and so she will be overseeing all of the privacy elements of this, including around data breaches.
Yeah, so that digital ID stuff is definitely one of the key debate points to start looking into. I guess that's what I've seen a lot with a lot of people upset about, is they're thinking that after we get digital ID, then that's going to be a way that they can again begin to quote unquote control us and drip feed us and those sort of things. But I just don't think that is going to stack up as strongly as what people think in terms of the conspiracy. way that they're elaborating on. But yeah, let's keep going.
You are the e-safety commissioner. Given your conversations with these companies, are you satisfied that what they've done will keep Australians' data safe?
Absolutely, and this is precisely why the government actually did the age assurance technical trial to test about 50 different technologies. Almost all of them tested are ready to be operational, and a large proportion of them had what we would call the highest level of technical readiness. And they were measured for accuracy, robustness, effectiveness, but also ensuring that they were privacy preserving, so they can do this.
Of course, this is all about fighting a battle that so many Aussie parents are struggling with, and those parents include the Minister and the Commissioner themselves.
And the suggestion for parents would be, blame me, blame us. This is the government making the law. For once, you are no longer the bad guy in this fight that you are having in your house every single day. The government made this law. Everyone has to comply.
I've got 13-year-old twins, two of whom are reacting very differently to what this means. But the one that's really concerned about it is like, Mom, you know, we're getting these notifications from Snap and Meta, and they've already said that they're 16, and so they're going to be on it, and I'm not. I'm like, don't worry. They will figure out that they're not 16 because, you know, they've been on the platform this long and they're already picking up behavioral signals. And, you know, if they are, maybe this is a conversation I have with their parents, and it may be a choice. But I think the vast majority of parents and of under 16s will probably not miss it over time. There will be a transition, and there will be some kids that will do it really tough. So we've been working with a range of mental health organizations to make sure that we're sending them to help-seeking places where they can find connection and communication and mental health support if they need it.
You mentioned your own children there, so obviously this is almost a bit of a personal one for you. How does it feel to be on the forefront of making the internet a safer place for your own kids, but also everyone else's kids?
Well, I mean, I think there's a loud vocal minority who really are pushing hard against it, and you know, I'm receiving a lot of blowback from that. But I think the vast majority of Australians, and particularly Australian parents, want and need to see this. We have to have their backs on this. You know, we're relatively powerless against the most powerful conglomerate of companies and the richest ones that have ever been.
The ban has been labelled as extreme by some, and a lot of people have asked why entire platforms need to be banned rather than just the harmful content on them.
A couple of things to say about this. Firstly, one of the things that we know is that Australian kids often don't know that they are experiencing harm online when they take a selfie, upload it to a platform, an hour or two later they take it down. That platform knows that they're not feeling particularly happy with how they look by the act of deleting the image. That platform then advertises to them diet products, skincare products, makeup products.
I don't necessarily know how true what she just said there regarding about putting up a selfie and then taking it down, and the social media company knows, so they promote beauty products. I don't necessarily know how true that is. It's very, very sinister if it is, and exactly why something like this needs to happen. But this kind of circles back to like my earlier position point around like kids just not having you know, the developmental skills yet of just understanding about what is going on when you post a photo and then someone says something negative about it, and then how you feel, and then how do you manage those feelings and what you do about them. You know, that's something that you can experience at a higher level online than what you would, you know, if you go to school and then someone says, you know, you look ugly or blah, blah, blah. There's more of a realistic way of dealing with that with other people, and, you know, developing the people skills to be able to navigate how you're emotionally affected at that point, rather than online where you post a photo, you get called ugly by like, it can happen to like, it could be like 20 comments, it could be more, it could be, you know, whatever, then it could be shared around the school. It can just turn into a much harsher event. And then that kid could possibly, take it down, go in their room and just like completely reserve, which just isn't healthy. So that's where I think is very, very important to understand with these points.
That is predatory behaviour that the user herself or himself doesn't even know that they're experiencing. So that's why it can't be left to these platforms to do their own regulating.
But there are all of these other problematic things on the internet outside social media, even if they do end up on those social media platforms. So why doesn't eSafety deal with the harmful content itself rather than the platforms that are carrying them?
We do. And so what I think is really important to reinforce for Australian parents is that the social media minimum age bill is a really narrow piece of legislation. And what it does is it restricts under 16s from having and holding a social media account. One of the reasons for that is the government looked at some of our research and other overwhelming research that found that 96% of 10 to 15-year-olds were on social media. 70% of them were experiencing some form of harm. What we released at the National Press Club is that most kids, the most places they were experiencing harm was on YouTube, 40% of kids.
Which is so interesting because you don't really think of it as a very bad platform, but it's interesting that so many kids are coming across bad content.
Well, it could
I can tell you right now, some people are ruthless in YouTube comments. I can definitely tell you that. But someone who seems to have controversial, well, maybe not controversial, but I definitely tend not to have the most popular stance as people on YouTube for some reason. People really, really love conspiracy theories and, you know, going against the grain. Yeah, I can vouch that yeah, some people are pretty harsh on YouTube.
It could be anything from misogynist content. It could be hateful content targeting a particular religion or ethnic group. It could be youth crime online, and we saw a lot more of a surge of fight videos that are posted online.
They've had 10, 15, 20 years to make these platforms safer, and whilst we appreciate many of them have taken steps to make their platforms safer, manifestly they are not safe online when 7 out of 10 Australian kids have suffered harm online.
The stereotypes, stigmas,
normalize bullying and like body shaming.
really, really high standards of body images.
Like it forms a really negative community, especially when it comes to comment sections. It's addicting.
Friends say that they become less productive because they spend too much time on it.
It can expose younger people to a lot of different stuff online that they shouldn't always be exposed to, you know. Some more extreme views, like that kind of stuff.
You get bogged down a little bit of like all the bad stuff happening in the world.
We've also had people asking about what appear to be limitations on the ban, namely why pornography and dangerous chatbots aren't included.
Yeah, the Minister was adamant that those corners of the internet are already covered by other regulations.
The E-Safety Commissioner has been working week in, week out on these matters for 10 years. Australia was world leading 10 years ago when we created the E-Safety Commission, the independent regulator and essentially the shopfront for Australians to go when they experience harms online. There has been big improvements in that space, working with E-Safety over the past few years. Just a couple of months ago, I announced that the government will be banning Notify apps, apps that are increasingly harmful and experienced by Australian teenagers in classrooms. We've announced some more work that we're going to do in that space as part of our response to the Online Safety Act. Absolutely, the pen is not done, and next year we'll be moving on.
So we're also given a much more broader set of tools under.
I guess as well, like we just call them like, you know, adult or pornographic apps and those sort of things. I'd probably say that they're mostly targeted, or they're mostly going to be male users, whereas the social media ban, you know, encompasses, you know, both males and females.
Our online codes and standards, and so that targets the other parts of the internet, including.
And I can almost guarantee that there's more kids using social media than there is kids looking into, you know, those kind of platforms and websites and stuff. I'm not saying that it's not a problem or anything like that, but I think you're casting a wider brush with something like this.
The social media accounts. It covers 8 different sectors of the technology ecosystem, from the devices themselves to the app stores to the search engines. And we've just taken action against some overseas nudifying sites, declothing sites that have been downloaded about 100,000 times a month and have been used in Australian schools. That's now blocked for Australians from access. So that's a good thing. We've had a chat roulette site, which basically pairs pedophiles with young people, and through a video chatting platform. It was based in Portugal, and when they weren't responsive, we went to the app stores, to the Google Play Store and to iTunes Store, and they deplatformed those because it was a violation of their terms of service and the codes. So there are a range of things we're doing. We've forced some really important safety uplift by Roblox, so that adult strangers can no longer contact children. Children's accounts have to be have the highest level of privacy on by default, and now they're going to age verify their entire user base, which is good for a commingled platform. So we're using these tools, and then we have complaint schemes where we have a 98% success rate in terms of getting down image-based abuse, including deepfake image-based abuse, from a whole range of sites. We have a high success rate with kids that are experiencing cyberbullying, and then we know the more quickly we get that content down, the more relief that provides to the young person. And then we're, of course, dealing with terrorist content and child sexual abuse material. And so you will have seen that we effectively had the Charlie Kirk assassination, other bombings, bludgeonings, and beheadings that were blocked.
Yeah, I can definitely, you know, when that Charlie Kirk assassination happened, it was all over X. Pretty sure Instagram, you know, blurted out on that, but, you know, it wasn't long before, you know, on X you could literally just writing Charlie Kirk, and that thing came up pretty quick, and it was not censored at all. Yeah, and that's what she's sort of tapping into there.
Blocked in Australia, but not the rest of the world, preventing people from being able to see it because it's considered refused classification or illegal content. So we're using a range of tools to do that, and I guess I'd just say that social media minimum age is just another tool in the toolkit.
When we asked the E-Safety Commissioner about it, we actually got a bit of a sneak peek at some of the other changes that will be affecting a broader range of Australians. What about when it comes to online pornography? Are there any age limits when it comes to those kinds of sites?
Yes, so we've got some exciting things coming in December and March. There will be a search engine code that comes in. So if you're not logged into a particular account and you're just browsing or searching the internet, From December 27th, pornography and explicit violence will be blurred. And we know that 40% of kids that see pornography for the first time online, it is search engines that are the gateway, and they're seeing it incidentally, accidentally, and as they describe it, in their face. So it's a minor inconvenience for adults. If you get a blur and you still want to see it, you can click right through, but it prevents that circumvention. We also, if somebody is looking for ways to take their own lives, rather than sending them to a lethal method site, we will redirect them to mental health support. So I think these are good things for society. What we're going to see in March is even more exciting. We're the only country.
Yeah, that is a good question actually. So Nick's asked how many kids are actually using, I assume what it means is social media, for their mental health. Let's see if that comes up. How many kids under 16 use social media to improve their mental health? I guess, like, talking with friends, socializing on the apps and stuff like that. So while exactly there's a significant number of kids under 16 use for mental health with surveys, over a third of teens, around 34%, get mental health info from platforms like TikTok, finding it important for support, connection and coping, though most don't see it as replacing professional help. I guess that's that is actually a good comparison there. Line, although kids probably might feel more comfortable with using social media to get that mental health information, there are multiple different ways that kids can get mental health info, through teachers, through caregivers, through parents. I assume that there's like infographic material as well at schools, friends, but there's always going to be the sub cohort of that as well, where maybe they don't feel comfortable speaking up. And I guess social media is probably contributing to people being more reserved like that as well. So it's not going to be, there are people here who obviously need extra care, but I guess the whole thing is about protectionism. So information, so 34% of teens get mental health info from social media, with 9% doing so often. Support and connectivity. Many teens feel more accepted, supported, and connected to friends through social media. Yeah, I'd imagine so. Because you can keep up with, I forgot what the conversation I've had before on this, where back when I was at school, you would see your friend at school, and you'd be like, okay, cool, I'll see you at 5 o'clock. We'll ride our bikes into the park, and you go home at 3:30, and you just wouldn't have any communication with them until you go to meet them at the park. And if they might show or they might not show. If they don't show, you don't actually end up finding out what happened to them until the next day. So I feel like this kind of, to some degree speaks into that. 70% feel they have a place of express creativity. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Many of course are going to feel more creative. You've got this supercomputer. But I do feel like there's other ways to, there's other ways to take care of that creativity than just using social media. I don't think that's not what social media was really designed for. But anyway. But yeah, no, it's a good question. Yeah, I guess that's my answer towards it. I think it kind of feeds into it to some degree as well.
In the world that will be tackling AI chatbots and AI companions, and they will be prevented from serving any pornographic, sexually explicit, self-harm, suicidal ideation, or disordered eating to under 18s. And this restrictions to pornography will apply to porn sites, obviously, to social media sites, to gaming sites, like I said, up and down the stack. So these will be significant.
And that brings us to the technology underpinning the ban. Platforms might look at your everyday behaviour and patterns online to work out roughly how old you are. The law says no one will be forced to provide ID, and if you're asked, there must also be another option.
We voluntarily give up a tremendous amount of data to these social media platforms for our own leisure, but they have so many different data points about us, not just a date of birth that you have entered or a particular face that you have used at the time of Face ID me if that's what you're choosing to do. They know pretty much every single thing about us, and one or two different data points put in at a particular moment when a ban comes into place doesn't outweigh all of the other things they know about us, and that's why the onus is on the platforms to use that knowledge, that technology, to keep Australian kids safe online.
What's really important for the audience to know is that we didn't want a single point of failure. The vast majority of these platforms are large and they've been around for a long time, so they already have sophisticated tools that they've been using, what we call age inference tools. So they're picking up behavioral data all the time. So they can see when a kid is logging in before school and after school. 13-year-olds generally speak to 13-year-olds. If they use a little natural language processing, just the use of grammar, acronyms, and emojis they put them in an age range. So what we've asked them to do is take a layered safety approach, or what we call successive validation. So if they want to use the proprietary tools they already have, they have to layer on either age estimation or a liveness test, which involves a selfie, or ID is also permitted, but it can't be the only means of asking for information.
That does make sense, that if someone's not on between the hours of 8:30 and 3 p.m, that perhaps they might be in school and not age appropriate. But we've heard it over and over again.
Kids will always find a way, always.
If I was 15 and found out that there was a ban, I'd probably try and find a way around it.
Kids are going to find their way around this ban, and we've had plenty of kids on TikTok telling us.
Yeah, I think this is, going back to my debate points earlier in the video. Same thing with like underage drinking. Kids will find a way to get alcohol illegally. Kids will find out a way how to use fake IDs. It's this isn't a new. This doesn't just apply to the social media ban.
Exactly how they're planning to do it.
We have, but the government has tried to plan for this.
We worked on an age verification roadmap for more than 2 years, from 2021 to 2023, and I've been working in this space for 30 years, but since 2008 on age verification. So I sat down with my team before we saw the final rules, and we sort of thought, what could potentially go wrong? It's almost like a form of adversarial testing. What does age-based circumvention look like, and what does location-based circumvention look like? And what we decided to do was put the onus back on the platforms themselves. So if someone is using a VPN, there are a range of signals that they can identify, and they can look at whether the app was downloaded from the Australian App Store, and if it indicates that somebody hasn't been overseas for 90 days, it's a pretty sure thing that they're using a VPN. So they will have to re-age verify. The UK employed some age assurance requirements at the end of July, so we saw a spike in VPNs. I think we can expect to see that, but there are varying levels of quality and efficacy of VPNs, and to really have
I don't know, okay, if you had 100 kids, right, you could probably say maybe 5 to 10 of them are going to be, quite smart. They're probably going to be smarter than a lot of adults. And then there's going to be, another couple, or maybe another 10, 20% that will be, fairly smart, but not geniuses or anything. And then you're probably going to have a huge group of kids that really just want to have fun. And they're probably in the middle of acting their age and just being silly and going to the playground and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to say that probably once this ban comes into effect, a lot of kids probably will get over it within a couple months, and they'll just won't even care too much about it. And all this VPN stuff, I don't know, I'm just saying, I feel like all the VPN stuff, I just feel like kids aren't going to put that much effort into having social media platforms if they don't have a huge following, or they do just use it to chat to their friends, and then they just chat to them on maybe Discord, or or Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp. I feel like the whole VPN thing, they're going to get around it, they're going to do this, but I just think the majority of the kids that aren't going to be on this platform anymore, I think they're just going to not really be too phased with the whole going through the effort of getting VPNs and constantly having to do all these workarounds. I don't know. I could be wrong, but
of one that's really well set up would cost in the thousands of dollars. So I don't know how many teenagers are going to go that far. So we obviously have companies that know they need to follow these reasonable steps. But with the age spoofing of some of their accounts, we saw everything from using very detailed gaming graphics. You could wear a mask, you could put on a mustache. The age assurance technologies are testing for this, and they're improving all the time. So in fact, one of the more widely used ones, Yoti, has just put out a new model, and the accuracy is increasing, improving all the time. So they're testing for that.
Even that, using an AI generated digital mask, how many kids are going to know how to do that? Unless I'm showing my age, and it is really, really simple. Yeah.
spoofing. So yes, a few people will get around, but I think what we need to look at is what is the overall normative change that's happening here?
And just very quickly, I know that you spoke about it a second ago, but what happens when people use VPNs? What are the mechanisms there for platforms to know that someone might still be underage?
Well, if you look at our regulatory guidance, we have provided them with a range of signals that we think they will be need to be looking for. I mean, again, it's everything from they can see where you downloaded your app. Is it the Australian version of the map? Is it the US version of the map? And most won't view you as being domiciled here unless they've seen that you've been overseas for more than 3 months. There's device IDs. If you're using Telstra or Optus, chances are you're Australian based. So there are a range of signals that they can pick up, and IP ranges as well.
We also asked what's stopping parents from helping kids get around the ban by scanning their own faces or showing their IDs.
Well, in the same way that older brothers and siblings or parents buy alcohol for under 18s to get around the law, doesn't mean that the law is not a good and important thing to do.
And the simple fact of the matter is, we know last year, based on our research, that 84% of 8 to 12-year-olds already had a social media site. And in 90% of cases, parents help them set them up. Why did they do that? Because they don't want their kids to be excluded. Now that we have a social media delay and they can sit down and say, hey, the government has said it's just not good for you and it's not legal for the platforms to have you hold an account unless you're 16. So this goes for you, but this also applies to all of your peers. And there may be some parents who will allow their kids on.
Now, of course, these rules don't mean much without consequences, and there's been a lot of confusion about who might get in trouble and how people could get caught.
What about when people do witness younger children using these platforms? Is there any kind of reporting mechanism? Can they talk to the eSafety Commission about the loopholes that people are using? Yeah, can you dog? Can you be a rat?
Well, again, it's funny, I've heard that from some parents. Rather than just talking to your kids and say, let's do it together, maybe I'll dob them in. Well, two things that we wrote into the regulatory guidance is that companies do have to have user reporting queues, and we saw some of those when we were in California. The Meta folks showed us what it was going to look like, which was good, just to know that they're starting to operationalize this and think about what those would look like. We ideally want them to be in-app, and so that's where you can report an underage user.
So users can actually go onto Facebook or YouTube and actually report things in there?
Yes. So if you want to report that there was an underage user still on there, you would use that vector or that URL based on the platform it is. We as eSafety will also be taking reports, not as really a response mechanism, but as another way of gathering intel. So if we get a huge set of reports that shows that, say, YouTube doesn't seem to be getting rid of under 16 accounts, then that tells us something that may trigger some of our compliance and enforcement mechanisms.
We've asked some of the young Aussies affected what they think and how they feel.
I won't report them because at the end of the day, it's their decision and they will get the consequences that they get.
I would tell them that it's not good for them, but I wouldn't go out of my way to report it.
I would tell them personally that it's not right for you to use this application, but I wouldn't report them.
I would just leave it, just pretend I didn't hear or see nothing.
Whatever my friends want to do is what they want to do, and that's not up to me or my parents, that's up to them.
But enforcement mechanisms aren't going to fall back on kids or their parents. Will there be any kind of punishment for older people who do set up accounts that are then used by younger children? I'm thinking in the same way that if you purchase alcohol for a younger person, that in itself is illegal.
No, the way that the bill was designed by the government and passed by Parliament is the onus purely falls on the platforms themselves. And that's a really important point because we know that there will still be kids.
All right, chat. Who do we feel like is going to be the first company that gets fined? Do we think it's going to be Meta? Do we think it's going to be Snapchat? I mean, Snapchat's owned by Meta. Do we think it's going to be YouTube? Do we think it's going to be X? Do we think it's going to be TikTok? Who do we think?
That may be on social media platforms that they shouldn't be on. And what we want to reinforce with them is if they experience image-based abuse or cyberbullying, we are still open for business. They will not get in trouble if they're being cyberbullied, and they need to report to us to help get that content taken down.
And there are a lot of questions around how to support kids through all this. It's going to be a huge shift for a generation that's grown up with so much technology at their fingertips.
Now, this is an interesting question from a teacher that came through. What can parents and teachers do to make kids more comfortable? Perhaps if they are using social media, they've circumvented it somehow, maybe they do come across something that is harmful, that worries them. How can we make kids comfortable to come forward, to say, hey, it's okay to come forward and talk about this, even if maybe you've been doing the wrong thing when they're on the sites?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good question. And we developed some resources for teachers precisely for that situation when we were starting to see, this was probably 7 years ago, some really explicit violence on TikTok through various online challenges. And so we we have a lot of material on what to do if your child sees violent or violent content online.
Your one source of truth is esafety.gov.au, and you'll find lots of really helpful resources for you to navigate these discussions with your kids. I've had lots of parents say to me they've actually found it really helpful when they went and had a look. Traffic is up 1,400% at esafety.gov.au in the last 6 weeks since we launched our advertising campaign and urged people to go there. So that's your first port of call for parents. My second suggestion for parents would be blame me, blame us. This is the government making the law.
And we've, of course, consulted with psychologists around this.
I think she's under the pump enough to be throwing out those lines. Anyone else think that?
So that's been around for a long time. You can seek it out as a parent at esafety.gov.au or as educators. We're doing a range of free webinars as well. So we're doing a number of them. We've had about 10,000 signups for just the social media minimum age bill, what it looks like, what it means for you. But we have some on what it means to be a young man online, adolescence and algorithms, the changing face of cyberbullying, and also the increasing violence that we're seeing online. These companies should be applying what we call interstitials or sensitive content labels. I know my 13-year-old twins, when the Charlie Kirk assassination video started going viral, they got it served up to them in their recommender system, their For You recommender system.
Yeah.
This is stuff you can't unsee, and this is why I think the codes that are coming into place are really so important.
This is just one piece of the puzzle for the Albanese government's response to the Online Safety Act review. We are looking at holistic policy. That's why digital literacy has been a big focus. We fund particular programs like Alana and Madeline Foundation to help digital literacy for Australian kids. There's other programs there like Newshound that goes into schools that help people learn about AI and the risks that they face online, how to spot risks, how to navigate risks. So digital literacy alongside creating a digital duty of care, which the Albanese government has committed to doing next year. We've opened consultation on that to get a sense of what Australians expect by way of social responsibility from our social media platforms. Those are spaces that will go next to overall improve safety online.
Whether you're for or against this ban, there's no denying it's going to be a massive change for young Australians who might have grown up using these apps.
We're a small agency. I'd like to think we're fighting above our weight, but it's all about the safety of Australians. If somebody doesn't push back, then we'll continue to see with AI and the metaverse this a repeat of the era of moving fast and breaking things. And I think the harms could be much more catastrophic if we...
Oh, look at that. Council moves to ban short-term rentals in low-density suburbs. Yeah. That could be interesting. Alright, well, anyway, that's thing number one. Let's start jumping into who's going to support it.
Teenagers under 16 have less than 6 hours before they're kicked off social media platforms. From midnight, children can't create or keep an account on many popular platforms, including Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook and YouTube. The ban is aimed at protecting kids from cyberbullying, online predators and harmful content. But teens in remote and regional Australia are worried they'll lose contact with friends and become more isolated. Platforms must comply with the new law or face fines of up to $50 million.
One of the architects of the social media ban is South Australian Premier Peter Malinauskas, and he joins us now. Thank you so much for your time, Premier. Do you think this will work?
I do. I think it's going to make a big difference for countless parents and young people throughout the country. It's always a bit of a risk when you're the first mover, and certainly in a global context, something that started in South Australia now sees Australia being a first adopter of this type of reform. And let me make a bold prediction. Things are going to go wrong, right? Kids are going to find a way around it, no different to them, you know, sneaking a beer in when they're underage or having a smoke behind a shed somewhere when they shouldn't. But by and large, having in place a standard and a rule that everyone says, look, this is what we're all going to aim for, does make a difference. And I think that'll be true here as well.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. It's not going to be perfect, but I do like the fact that we are taking a stand. Hey, the Prime Minister released a video statement overnight addressing those impacted by the ban. We're going to have a listen to that first.
Make the most of the school holidays coming up, rather than spending it scrolling on your phone. Start a new sport, learn a new instrument, or read that book that's been sitting there on your shelf for some time. And importantly, spend quality time with your friends and your family.
Probably the only thing worse than getting advice from your dad is probably advice from the PM. What do you think about that, Premier?
Oh, look, I think Albo gets it, right? I think this is something that he knows worries parents. And look, I would lend my voice as well to encouraging kids to get off the thing. I mean, look, we live in this magnificent world in a really peaceful and safe country by and large, and we just want kids to get out there and enjoy it and be optimistic about their futures. And when they're chatting with mates, whether they be throwing a line in or playing netball or whatever it is, they're going to be better for it. And to the extent they do more of that this school holidays, all power to them.
Premier, you mentioned before that there are, of course, loopholes, but what do you say to claims that kids will find workarounds that are actually risky and that will make them less safe online?
Yeah. Well, kids continue to get access to the internet today as much as they will tomorrow when the ban comes into effect, right? So it doesn't really change the game there. What we're going to appreciate is that this reform isn't really about regulating the relationship between social media company and children, although it does do that. Where the power in this reform lies is enabling parents, giving parents the tool to be able to moderate access to social media for their own kids. Because parents are looking for advice from government, they're looking for guidance. And by now, because we know...
Yeah, it's a big point that I was... keep coming back to is that it's a multi-stakeholder issue that we're trying to resolve. protecting kids from social media and promoting e-safety. It's not just about government policy, but it's also about parents stepping up. It's about schools stepping up. It's about social norms stepping up. It's more than just a government policy. And I don't think isolating the government policy and all this is the right way to do it. And I think that's what they're touching on here. Which I
definitively, that social media platforms seek to make these algorithms addictive. We know there's a responsibility for government to act. But we've got to continue to monitor the internet usage of children and make sure that they're prevented from getting access to harms. But that's the job of parents, first and foremost, and this is about enabling parents.
So is this ban more for parents than it is for kids? And are we just bad parents for not being able to do this ourselves?
It's a really good question, Denham, and I've thought about this a lot before we first floated it as a proposition. Is this like an overreach on behalf of government into an area that parents should be just doing it themselves? Look, my response to that is that negates the lived reality for parents and families across the country. What happens is, say you've got 10 kids in a class, if 9 kids all get a phone and social media use, how is a parent supposed to hold the line on their last child? I mean, to say no to them having access to social media basically says, well, you're not going to have any access to your friends, which is just not a tolerable position. So it's actually giving parents the ability to be able to tell their children, everyone's got the same rules, you just can't do it, Jenny or Johnny, and you're not being left out because everyone's in the same position. That's where the power lies.
Premier, as we said, you are one of the architects of this ban. And one thing we're still trying to pin down is exactly how kids who are 16, especially those who look younger, will be able to prove their age if they're locked out, because face scans aren't always accurate. Not everyone has government ID. And we know that politicians are saying that it's up to the apps, but shouldn't the government be taking some guidance on this, because it is going to be a logistical nightmare?
Look, there is going to be complexity here, right? And I think it's important that we're honest about it from the outset, particularly given, remember this, that social media platforms themselves, some of them might not necessarily want this ban to work, right? They're incentivised to see it fail in Australia. Otherwise, every country around the world is going to be adopting it, as there's already been a lot of interest. Having said that, I think it's important that we focus on the fact that legislation very deliberately, and this is the idea that came out of South Australia, is that we put the onus on the social media platforms themselves. Be under no misapprehension about how sophisticated these technological providers are. I mean, these are some of the most well-resourced, well-capitalised companies in human history. They know when a young girl takes a photo of themselves, a selfie, to go post it and then chooses to delete it at the last moment. They take that information and then sell it to makeup providers as a good...
Google that. Because I've heard that 2 or 3 times now. Twice today, and I've heard it before, so let's do social media platforms know when a user posts a selfie and then removes it, then pushes beauty like ads to their feed, or is this a myth? It's not a complete myth. Social media platforms absolutely track your actions, including posting and deleting selfies, and use this data along with image analysis to understand your interests, like beauty self-perception, to target relevant ads. Even if the exact post-delete ad sequence isn't a public algorithm, it's part of their sophisticated user profiling. They see your interest in your own appearance, then disinterest, then likely back to beauty content, all signaling a need for improvement. So you could probably say that's an algorithm. It's not like a malicious sort of attack, but yeah. So they may not have a secret selfie delete ad button, but yeah, I think that the underlying data correlation profiling, yeah, I could see it using it as like a it doesn't have any sort of understanding of emotions. It's all just about data and connecting the dots and whatnot. So I could see how that could happen.
Moment to capitalise on the vulnerability of that young girl. Now, if they're sophisticated enough to do that, then they're sophisticated enough to invest into technology to ensure that young people aren't getting access to accounts before they turn 16.
Yeah.
Well, Premier, you make some good points there. You've got 2 parents here at the desk that are in favour. Yeah, we're on board. So, mate, thanks for coming on the show to talk about it tonight.
I appreciate it. Our kids are the most precious resource we've got in this country. Let's get this done to actually make sure our country's in a better shape.
All right.
Dutton's genius ideas. We've spoken at length on this program about the dangers of this legislation, how it's going to be used to limit access to credible news, to different forms of communication. It's going to inhibit people's free speech and free expression, and not just the under 16s, but it's been presented in this ridiculous term of this is just about the safety of young people online. If you believe that...
I mean, that's what it kind of sounds like. It could be fooling me. Like I said about freedom of speech and that, like under 16-year-olds, like I understand that under 16-year-olds, they probably have, they do have a right to, voice their concerns and what they say is important. But that's what they've got their friends for. That's what they've got their school for. That's what they've got a lot of forums and stuff like that for. So it's not really. I don't see it as an inhibitor of free speech. I just don't think that sort of stuff applies to kids under 16. So
that then. I can't help you because you obviously are not across the detail. If you still don't understand by this point the fact that sites like YouTube and X fall under this ban, but Blue Sky, which is some far-left lunatic asylum for social media users, that somehow is exempt from this ban. If you don't understand this is political and how it's going to be used in the future to suppress free expression and speech further, then it's quite depressing because the level of debate and the level of understanding of this legislation in this country is depressingly low.
Well, also what is sickening and it's such a joke that Annika Wells is the minister in charge of this under-16 legislation, because already they're assuming it's going to fail. Already they're putting in, it's going to be messy, it's going to be this, the transition period. That word transition, I mean, I tell you, that describes everything wrong with the left in the world. But they're using this thing, under-16 bill. What have they done with it? They've trotted around the world to sell themselves to their globalist elite mates all around the socialist UN and everywhere else. That's who they're selling this idea to. They know it's not really going to work very well, and they don't seem to care. They've already got the big tick from their UN mates. They'll sit there and when they lose office, they'll trot off to some job where they'll, work their way up on the global gravy train. But the point is, this thing's not going to work because kids are too smart, and it's going to disadvantage a lot of kids who want to use YouTube and other means to stay in touch over the holidays, to educate themselves, to entertain, etc.
It's not about working with kids. This is a way to bring in social media sites and bring in not just digital ID, but to really issue these crippling fines to social media sites to force them to censor information that they don't want to discuss, things that they think are contrary to social cohesion. So there are so many examples, and they're fairly upfront about what they see as contrary to social cohesion. And debates about mass immigration, for example, are things they don't like discussed. Debates, James.
I don't think there are a lot of under 16-year-olds debating mass immigration on social media. I think that's a far reach. And it's just interesting that now they're upset about these multi-billion-dollar companies now being fined. But typically, aren't they, against big multi-corporations? It's either, yeah.
Things like are certain ethnic groups overrepresented in crime statistics? They don't want that discussed.
They don't want any of that discussed because that gets you into very dangerous territory where you might be called a neo-Nazi if you start talking about that. That's what they do. But
how are we talking about that when we're talking about under 16-year-old social media ban? Why are we talking about neo-Nazis and mass immigration and these sort of things? It's just
it's more than that.
Just keep in mind the last two videos we watched, which was like explaining it and the SA Premier's defending it. You can tell the complete different vibe of the commentary about it to what's going on with the opposing it. Just keep in mind on that.
Because this is part of a much more sinister global push. We've spoken about it. I've reported on this here on this program. Our e-safety commissioner, who comes to us from the United States. We've also got in the European Union, we've had efforts just this week to fine X massive amounts of money if essentially they don't go along with a European censorship regime, which basically means don't talk about mass immigration, don't talk about ethnicity, don't talk about welfare, don't talk about crime, don't talk about the fact that, hey, it's Christmas market season. Why are there all these big concrete bollards around the things? Well, it must be for traffic control. They're talking about all of that sort of stuff. And that censorship is part of a global effort to shut down the First Amendment in the United States, which is the precious guarantor of liberty around the world. This is a hill I will absolutely die on. Domestically, though, the fact that this coalition was so harebrained that they don't see the opportunity here and, in fact, push this. And I can tell you this, the federal Young Nationals have just passed a resolution to say that they oppose the under-16 ban. And it's like, guys, coalition, what does every headline say? What does every poll say? You've got a problem with young people. Young people, you've got this issue right here where you could have said, no, young people, we are for your right to be on social media and use the internet as you choose. And yet they squibbed it and they backed this whole thing in. Again, they've just missed yet another opportunity.
Well, Senator Matt Canavan in Senate estimates this week was very good. Might have been last week, pinning down the bureaucrats behind and the e-safety commissioner herself. Because Matt Canavan was saying, look, I use YouTube with my kids. He's got a big family with my kids. I use it to teach them. We sit around, we watch shows together or whatever. What happens if I show kids on my YouTube channel, on my platform, whatever, using my account, basically, and this bureaucrat kind of faffed around the e-safety commissioner, clueless, never knows what she's doing. She always has to go to the bureaucrats because she's
Well, she mentioned in that other video that they're allowed to do that. You're also allowed to use YouTube without even signing in. So, you know, it's for the YouTube thing, it's about using an account and then they gather data and then they begin to use an algorithm on you. And plus you can't comment as well when you don't have an account. So you are less susceptible to engaging in, you know, pretty bad bullying if you were to, you know, debate someone or, you know, whatever. So that's what it's about.
Just a political ideologue. And the bureaucrat basically said, well, we might have to shut your account down. What? And Matt went, what? What? You mean
No.
there goes parental control?
That's not true. That's just false.
So Matt was asking, could that happen? And she was saying, well, it might. She didn't really, they don't know what they're doing. It's all literally, as you say, all about introducing control. They don't actually care what they do so long as they get that control.
Getting your first 1,000...
All right. What's up? Last one. Let's see what we're going to do. So this is the, what teens, what people, like what the younger kids are saying about the...
Now, tomorrow, Australia will become the first nation in the world to implement a blanket social media ban for all children under the age of 16. It's a policy dividing opinions among parents, teens and digital experts.
So this morning, we have a packed panel to discuss the massive change that will be coming to Australian households this week. So we're joined by Amy Friedlander, founder of the pro-ban movement Waitmate, Leonie Breen and her 15-year-old son Luca and their 12-year-old daughter Zara, and Mariana Papa and her 13-year-old daughter Bianca here in the studio. Thank you all for coming in on this. We really do appreciate this. And down the line, we have digital industry contributor Sean Rowland, who joins us from Melbourne. All right, Amy, I'm going to go for you first. The ban, good or bad, where do you stand on it?
I am over the moon about what is happening this week in our country. As a mum to three girls, I could not be more delighted about the leadership position that our government's taken to help Australian families and parents to remove our kids from harmful experiences when they're too young to be ready for them.
What is it mostly that you want to protect your children from?
I want to protect them from growing up in a world where they have to worry about how they appear to everyone else and what their brand is, rather than having actual experiences and discovering who they are without those digital pressures.
All right, Sean, let's bring you in from Melbourne now. You're working in the digital industry. You have for a number of years. You also have 2 teenage daughters, so you have 2 sides of this argument here. But you're against the ban, aren't you? Tell us why.
Yes, I am. Good morning. I think my starting position is teenagers have a right to participate in public life. They also have a right to a digital life, to engage with culture, to connect with each other online. And whether we like it or not, social media is now the primary way in which people do this. So I do think this is a retrograde step. I do think we're trying to recreate a world that's no longer there for our teenagers to engage with. And I also think there's this false narrative around that teenagers are either always online, and if they're always doing that, they don't do other things. My daughters play netball, they go dancing, they do math tutoring, and they enjoy connecting with each other on social media as well.
Well, Leonie, let me bring you in here, because you've got the 2 kids here with Luca and Zara. And, Zara's about to start high school, I would assume, next year. Good luck. But we're talking about not just about social media, but the algorithm that social media is sort of run by now, which can definitely, for young men, be a dangerous thing. Does this ban take the pressure off you as a parent?
Definitely takes the pressure off for the likes of Zara starting high school this year, getting her first phone. I'm glad I don't have the choice, that she doesn't get social media. Definitely, I think it will make it easier on her just to connect with her friends and not have that worry, or the worry for me. I'm glad it's not on the parents, to be quite honest.
Luca, what do you think about this ban?
Personally, I don't think the way this ban is coming in is going to be beneficial or work out the way they want it to work out. Because I know a lot of parents and a lot of people are looking at this in a way that it's going to get kids off their phones. They're not going to be able to doom scroll. They're not going to be able to sit there endlessly. But the issue is, it's banning accounts. It's not banning social media. You can still go onto your phone, you can go onto TikTok, you can go onto YouTube, and you can scroll endlessly without an account. So this whole element of banning the account for kids to express themselves, to connect with others, to post, updates about their lives or communicate on Snapchat, it's just taking away one element, which is beneficial, but it's still keeping that element of being able to doom scroll and watch for as long as
You make a really good point, and your perspective on this is so important. We appreciate you coming here and being so honest about it. Zara, do you agree with your brother on that front?
I'm definitely on the same page as him, because I think banning having an account is useless, because a lot of people go onto TikTok to scroll, not to post things. And if we want to ban kids from getting in trouble with bad things on TikTok, I think we should just ban TikTok and YouTube and Snapchat and Instagram.
I don't know, on TikTok, I know with Instagram, I think when there's sensitive content, I've seen this before, but you kind of have to, it warns you that it's sensitive content, and you have to click see why it's sensitive, or you click or you can click yes, see it. Does TikTok have that? I'm not too sure, because I guess if it does, so I know that this would be true for Instagram. If you were scanning through Instagram without being logged in, then I guess that content would probably be hidden from you. It's my understanding. And the whole thing about getting rid of the account is in that way those algorithms where, like they're saying, you post a selfie, and you take it down, and they push an ad, a beauty ad, to, I guess, that reduces, or that means that you don't get that, you're not targeted for those types of algorithms.
Instagram for kids under 16 because I think it's just way better for them.
Leonie, what a Christmas you're about to have.
Yeah.
Your daughter Bianca uses social media. This is to showcase her talents and to work on her CV and to land work potentially in the future as well, or even now. So tell us about this and what this band's going to mean for your family. Obviously, you're in the arts here.
Yeah, we use it as a networking professional tool. It's we keep in touch with directors, with friends that she was on a tour internationally. We use it to get inspired and to connect.
You'll be running that account too. Like
I am running. Yeah, 100%. I'm running it.
Yeah.
But I do teach her. I'm constantly telling her what to do. She is with me. I run it, but I'm there showing her the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you had any negative experiences on social media, Bianca?
I haven't really. And for people who have, I think we should just take a break from social media. Don't involve yourself in it like you would in real life.
Okay, so we want to dive into the practical day-to-day changes and concerns here. So, Luca, you mentioned like maybe your mates are going to look for look-arounds there. We've heard other teenagers out there saying that the kids are going to get VPNs. They're very tech-savvy. They're going to find a way around this. But it's about from a parental point of view, it's about saying, well, maybe if it's, you can't access as much, you'll find other things to do, just get a Nokia and call your mates. Do you think that's going to be something that your mates are just going to refuse to do?
It's not going to be a refusal, and it already happens. It's just the act of banning. I'm going to put Snapchat in the spotlight for this segment because that's mainly a messaging app. There is a scrolling feature on Snapchat, but it's very minuscule in what people use it for. And it's the way we could move to WhatsApp and we could move to messages, which many people still already do. But the reason why this ban of Snapchat is it's the way we've kind of grown up with communication. It's that sort of informal, casual way of a quick visual update with a photo or posting a story on your Snapchat. It's just the way that my generation of
you
13,
could adapt.
15...
If you're adapting to find new ways around social media, you could adapt to WhatsApp, right?
There's definitely ways to adapt, but if there's...
What I always find interesting about this talking point is you have all these people who are very, very against the social media ban, and obviously all the people for it. But before the whole social media ban, every I basically know, I'd say almost every single person I met complains about using their phone too much, using social media too much. Oh, kids these days are just always like this and do heads down, not looking where they're going and all this sort of stuff. And then it's just interesting how much all of that has sort of changed now just based on this ban. I just find it super interesting how quickly it's all shifted. All the, I'll just say all the oldies always oh, when we were young, we didn't, we didn't call each other or we didn't message each other, blah, blah, blah. We just went and, seeing each other. You'd go past the house and you'd see 10 push bikes on the lawn, and that's because all your friends are over. And then when we start trying to steer back to that way, everyone starts complaining. This kid's got a very, very good point here where they've developed hey, this generation has created us, has given us all these tools to use, and now we've learned to develop, growing up with them, and now they're being stripped. Can 100% understand that. And that's probably the strongest argument that they have is, hey, you did this to us really because sorry, I'm just using these as a scapegoat here, but your generation has made these apps, your generation has created all the policies and blah blah blah. We have had no input into any of that, and now we're using exactly what you created, and now we feel like we're being punished for it. I think that's probably the strongest argument and needs to be dealt with the best. All the sort of conspiracy theory shit should just be completely disregarded. I think these two also present a very, very good point regarding the business in that, and she's the one using the profile. I think there is, I wonder if that's actually not a part of the ban because it's actually her profile and she's managing it. I wonder if there's that's a bit of an edge case or something. Very, very, very interesting conversation. This guy here is very, very smart. It's very, when I was talking before about it's probably that the 5% of kids who are going to know how to do all the things. This kid is definitely falling into that. He's talking very, very well for this conversation. That's for sure.
It's not a problem right now. Why change it? If we can already use Snapchat, and they can still if people are worried about bullying can happen on Snapchat. It can also happen on WhatsApp.
Okay,
it's a double-sided.
Yeah, it's it's.
Even then, he's shown he has very, very good people skills, I believe, just in this interview too. And if he's a very high-functioning social media user, showing that he has really good people skills too. But I would say that this person here, unfortunately, just doesn't represent the majority, or does represent them, but I don't think the majority could be behave in a similar manner as what he is now. But I could be wrong.
It's so interesting because you have grown up in you're digital natives,
exactly.
unlike us. So we're kind of speaking different languages in many ways in terms of the different generations. Amy, I know you're champing at the bit to say something. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Look, there is a problem with it. Snapchat also has Snap Maps and Snap Streaks, and that app has been designed to be addictive and hold your attention. If you can send your friends an image on WhatsApp, and that's in a closed group where it's just people and you're not feeling this pressure. Oh my goodness, I've been on a flight. I've got to check in so I can get my Snap Streak today. We want to release kids from the pressure of having to do that and having to be connected. So you can choose to do it, but you don't have to.
Can I bring in Sean here? Because I know, Sean, you're interested perhaps more in asking the big tech companies to crack down more on the way the algorithms work and things like that. I suppose the problem with that is a lot of people don't have a lot of hope or trust in these tech companies to do what is right for our kids.
No, absolutely. I think there's been a big opportunity missed here, though, to regulate those platforms, to provide a safer experience for our teenagers to use these apps. We've gone for a blanket ban, which I think is cutting off a lot of opportunity for our teenagers to grasp through these platforms. And I think we've really missed an opportunity to regulate these platforms to provide a safer experience for our teenagers. And there's lots of things they could do. They could be incentivizing these companies to provide algorithm-free feeds, so you only see posts from people you follow, to reduce the opportunity for strangers to DM teenagers. None of our parents, none of us parents want that to happen. And a whole raft of other things, around the addictive features just mentioned, could be regulated as well. So I think that was the hard option. They've gone for the easy option, which is a blanket ban, and I think that's going to have a lot of unintended consequences.
I think as well, we're talking about outrage machines, which are being funded by billionaires who get more money the more outraged we are, and that's the model that it is. And no matter what we can do, we can't change that. I don't think they're going to listen to us. So let's say the event takes place tomorrow. I'm going to do a quick round robin here about if you think it's going to work or not. Bianca, I'll start with you. What do you think?
I don't think it's going to work.
All right, Mariana?
No.
Amy?
I think it'll definitely work to shift well-being, especially for future generations. It's going to be tough on the kids who are already using these platforms and are addicted. They're going to have to go through a period of, like any addict, they're going to have to kind of just have that withdrawal for a period of time. But I do believe kids will adapt, and I have hope for them, and I think the future's bright.
Leonie, how do you feel about this? Do you think it'll be successful?
To a point, not to the extent that they think it will be.
Zara, what do you think?
I don't think it'll really work and take an effect because if kids still love scrolling on TikTok, scrolling on YouTube, texting their friends and snapping each other. If we're ever bored or have nothing to do, the first thing I might think of is, oh, let's scroll on TikTok, let's go on Instagram, I'm going to make a TikTok video.
And that's exactly
what a lot of parents out there
behaviour they're trying to shift.
Yeah, that's sort of the problem is.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Luca, I'm going to give you a final say. Is it going to work or not?
I don't think tomorrow it's going to work. It's going to roll out. Because even if I don't personally think that when I open TikTok tomorrow, it's going to, mate, get off this, you're done. Because it's going to ask for a bunch of verifications and whatnot. But then kids will also adapt. There's many kids who have thought, let's go to this platform, let's go to this less regulated, less known about, that can have many privacy concerns.
Will you be on Snapchat tomorrow?
I think I will be on Snapchat tomorrow, nonetheless.
Well, look, we appreciate all of you.
That's interesting. You guys share in the comments or in the chat if you think it's going to work, if you don't think it's going to work. I feel like it is going to be something that we're going to have to monitor over a few months to sort of see what happens, I reckon.